of Technical Professions.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jacob Klesby, and I'm a legislative fellow with KLRD assigned to analyze the budget for the Board of Technical Professions. Behind me in the audience is Larry Carnes, the executive director of the agency, and he may be prepared to stand and answer questions. The Board of Technical Professions provides for the protection, health, safety, and welfare of Kansans by ensuring that the practices of architecture, landscape architecture, engineering, geology, and surveying are carried out only by those proven to be qualified in one or more of those areas. If you will turn to page 2 on this document in front of you, this will begin the analysis of fiscal year 2025. Under Figure 3 on this page, this reflects the amount approved by the legislature for 2025 of $853,000. And if you can see, the agency's requested spending matches this amount. This is a 13% increase from the previous year's actuals, but the agency is not requesting an additional amount of spending. While the spending amount is the same for this fiscal year, there are several areas where the funds were reallocated, so the itemized expenditures are different, but the end result is still the same. The agency does not feature any SGF reappropriation for this fiscal year, nor are there any supplemental requests. Under item 3, at the bottom of page 2, this begins our first adjusted budget request, which is a decrease of $2,000 in salaries and wages. If you will turn to page 3, under item 4, the agency revised estimate includes an increase of $2,000 in expenditures for computer equipment. And under item 5, there's an increase of $190 for all other adjustments. This concludes fiscal year 2025. I'm happy to stand for questions for this fiscal year or move on to fiscal year 2026.
Any questions for the analyst on 25? Let's go to 26.
All right. The fiscal analysis of 2026 begins on page 4. The legislature once again approved an amount of $853,000 in spending, and the agency has requested $890,000 in spending, a 4.3% increase in spending. Under figure 7, this begins the analysis for the fiscal year 2026, showing a total of all other adjustment requests of $36,000. Under item 1, there are no enhancement requests. Under item 2, the agency has requested $30,000 for the hiring of a social media consultant. If you will turn to page 5 under item 3, the agency has requested an increase of $14,000 for licensing services. Under item 4, there is an additional $5,000 in spending to purchase new office equipment for an incoming director. Under item 5, there is a decrease of $13,000 for all other adjustments. I'm happy to stand for questions on fiscal year 2026 or move on to fiscal year 2027.
Questions on 26? Let's go to 27.
All right. The analysis of fiscal year 2027 begins on page 6. The agency has requested spending of $906,000, a 6.2% increase from the approved amount. The agency's adjusted budget request for this year totals $52,000 and does not feature any enhancement requests. Beginning the itemization on page 6, item 2, the agency request includes a decrease of $4,000 in salaries and wages. On page 7, there is again $31,000 for a social media consultant. Under item 4, there's an increase of $16,000 for licensing services. Under item 5, there's an increase of $7,000 for computer equipment. Under item 6, the agency has requested an increase of $5,000 for office equipment. And under item 7, there is a decrease of $36,000 for all other adjustments. And before concluding fiscal year 2027, if you will turn to page 9, this includes a reference table that shows the 10-year expenditure history for the agency. And on page 10, there's an overview of the ending balances for the agency's fee fund, and under figure 13, also on page 10, the current amount of agency fees and their statutory limits. You will notice that previous fees is blank, but that means that the fee has not changed in the last 2 fiscal years. And that concludes fiscal year 2027. I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions for the analyst on 27? Representative Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation, sir. I just have to ask, what does the social media consultant do for the Board of Technical Professions?
Some of the duties of the social media consultant are involved with the agency's website reconstruction and online expansion. As for more precise details of the social media consultant's duties, I would have to defer to the agency or get back to you with that information.
And they've used this service before, is that correct?
I am not aware of if it's been used in the past. It's something they are projecting for fiscal year 2026, but I can get that information for you to refer to the agency if they have used the service in the past.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions? All right, thank you very much. We'll bring the agency up now.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Larry Carnes. I'm the Executive Director of the Board of Technical Professions. You'll have to excuse me, my voice is a little soft, so if you can't hear me, ask me to speak up. Do you have any particular questions? You want me to give you a little overview?
If you have an overview, go ahead, or we can go to questions.
Just very briefly, the agency's in a transition period. I've been there since 2019. I'll have my 75th birthday in May, and I'm going to retire at the end of June. We have hired my replacement, Brad Parker. I'm working to train and mentor him between now and the end of June. I want to get him through a legislative session and see if he survives. And we also have new staff. While I've been there for the last 6 years, we operated for quite a while with 4 staff members, including myself. We had 5 full-time equivalent employees authorized. We've determined we need that 5th employee. We're in the process of hiring that 5th employee right now. And in fact, we'll actually have 6 employees between now and June because I'm still on the payroll as well until that period of time. But after that, we'll drop back to 5 staff. That's one of the reasons why some of the numbers go up and down and the percentages increase and decrease, is because we're kind of in a time of flux. When things come up next year, it'll all settle down, personnel will be in place, and should go forward. As far as your question about the social media, my board is very interested in outreach programs to try to encourage people in STEM education and these particular professions that we regulate. I joke and tell people, the people that get licensed by our board all took courses at KU that I was afraid to take because they're very technical and very professional courses. But we're trying to reach kids in junior high, high school, other ways. And frankly, the way to reach those people is social media. It's what I'm told. I'm kind of beyond that age myself, but that's the trend, and that's why they're asking for the $30,000 for the consultant.
Further questions for the director? Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along those same lines, and to kind of piggyback on my colleague's previous question, with respect to the consultant, is that providing services as well, or is that simply providing the consultation and then there will be additional funding that will be required for the actual social media services?
I'll give you the best answer I can. The board asked me to put $30,000 in our budget for a media consultant. I think it was to give us ideas as to how to set this up. We're hoping to be able to do it with our own staff.
So that's to say that there won't be the requirement for any additional FTEs to maintenance the social media.
That's not anticipated, no.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions? Director, thanks for joining us today, and congratulations on your upcoming retirement. All right, we will close the budget hearing on the Board of Technical Professions. We'll move to recommendations. We will start with we'll actually start with Kyle. He will go over the differences between the agency's requests, the Legislative Budget Committee's requests, and the governor's.
In your folder today, there should be two documents, a stapled packet of reports regarding the differences between the governor's recommendation and the LBC recommendation for each of the four agencies, or each of the five agencies that we heard this week. I will note that there are a few of these that show a null error on the front page. This is because there's no difference between the governor's recommendation, the LBC, and the database interprets the lack of any information as a null input error. So on, I believe, the first page and the last page, it will just show blanks because those entries are completely equal to one another. So that is the EMS board and the Board of Technical Professions. On Tuesday, we also heard the Sentencing Commission, and the difference there is that in the 2026 fiscal year, the governor has recommended adding back $1.1 million of the lapsed $2.4 million for SB 123 provider rate increases that was requested. You will also notice on the Excel spreadsheet printout that the SGF reappropriation lapse of $2.5 million was also recommended by the governor, as was made by the LBC. On Thursday, we heard KC Post and the Adjutant General. With respect to the KC Post budget, the only difference lies in the investigator position recommendation. In fiscal year 2026, the LBC recommended removing the funding for this and one FTE position for this request, and the governor has added that position and funding back in. And with respect to the Adjutant General, for fiscal year 2025, the lapsed disaster relief reappropriation, the lapsed state disaster funds, and KDEM federal contribution monies that were a supplemental request were all three added back by the governor's request. And similarly, in fiscal year 2026, the state disaster fund enhancement request was added back in for $19.6 million. The Trimbley White Readiness Center that was lapsed by the LBC was not added back in by the governor. And the KDEM federal contribution, the governor added 500,000 back of the request. The LBC had lapsed the 1.25 million that was requested in entirety.
Any questions for Kyle on that? All right, thank you, Kyle. All right, well, we will start with the EMS boards. We'll open the budget recommendations for the Emergency Medical Services Board. And I will just make the motion. I move the Legislative Budget Committee recommendation, which is HB 2007 for FY 2025 for the EMS board.
Second.
Seconded. Is there any discussion on FY 25? No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right. We will move to FY 2026. I move the Legislative Budget Committee recommendations which is HB 2007 for FY 2026 for the EMS Board. Was seconded. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? All right. Though FY 2025 and FY 26 is approved for the EMS Board, we will close the budget recommendations for EMS and open the budget recommendations for the Sentencing Commission. All right, starting with FY 2025, I move the Legislative Budget Committee recommendation, HB 2007, for FY 2025. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Representative Resman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When Scott Schultz was presenting his budget, he mentioned about $2 million that was removed from the 123 program, drug program. Is that in 26?
That is 2026. So the only difference on 2025 was an SGF reappropriation of just over 2.4 million. With the amount of time when we gavel out and this gets signed and appropriated, there's not much time left in FY 2025. So the governor did not put those funds back in. LBC removed them. So we're not adding them back. But your question was 2026, yes.
Should I ask that in 26 or just it's?
Yeah, we'll discuss that in 26. Any further questions on FY 25? All right. I'll move my motion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no? All right. We will move to FY 2026. I move the Legislative Budget Committee recommendation, HB 2007, with the following adjustment. I would like to add back in the SB 123 provider rate increase, and we will add what the governor recommended, the 1.1 million. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, if there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Very good. With that, we have approved FY 25 and 26 Sentencing Commission. We will close the budget recommendation, and we will move on to open the budget recommendations on C-Post. I move the Legislative Budget Committee recommendation, HB 2007, for FY 2025. Can I get a second? Any discussion on 25? No discussion on 25. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? All right. 2025 is approved. We'll move on to FY 2026. I move the Legislative Budget Committee recommendation HB 2007 for FY 26 with the following adjustment. The agency requested the investigator position at $103,000. The governor did put it in. LBC had removed it, but I would like to put that back in due to the 9-month backlog that they face. Can I get a second? Any discussion? Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to real quick say, I think putting this position back in is a good idea. The 9-month backlog could indicate that we have cops that do need to be removed from the streets of bad actors, but it also gives an opportunity for cops that have been falsely accused to be cleared and to get back out there. So I think this is a good idea, and 9 months to me is way too long for these investigations to take, so I think it's a wise investment.
Any further discussion? All right, no more discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? All right, C-Post 25 and 26 is approved. We will close the budget recommendations on C-Post and move to Adjutant General. All right, starting with FY 2025, I move the Legislative Budget Committee recommendation, HB 2007, with the following adjustments. I would like to add back in the disaster relief SGF reappropriation of just over 1.5 million, and the KDIM federal cut at 400,000. Can I get a second? Any discussion? Representative Hoy.
It's on this. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion to add the 1.6 million SGF for state disaster funds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there discussion on the substitute motion? I will just say I spoke with the Adjutant General's office today, and so they're asking for 1.6 million. We are giving them the disaster relief reappropriation, which is what they're bringing over from FY 24. With the tight, like we talked about earlier with Sentencing Commission, with the lack of time after we get out of session and these funds are appropriated, we're not sure that they're going to be able to draw down those funds in the appropriate time. So that's why we struck the state disaster funds from FY 25. They're still getting the 1.5 million in FY 25, and then when we get to 26, they will get their full 2.3 million as well. So in 25, my recommendation would be to strike the state disaster funds in 25. Any further, Representative Hoheiser?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and maybe staff can chime in on this too. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a mechanism as well. Oh, go ahead. There is a mechanism as well, Mr. Chair, correct me if I'm wrong, for State Finance Council perhaps to appropriate some funds in the case of a disaster. Is that correct, if need be?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
So this is not the only avenue.
Okay, so yeah, I would oppose the substitute motion and go with the basic motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion on the motion, the substitute motion? All right, Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So am I to understand correctly that, and not to look ahead, but to look ahead, that the recommendation will be to add those funds in fiscal year 2026?
Yeah, so, yeah, looking ahead at 26, they're asking for 2.3 million. My recommendation would be to put that back in, yes. The only thing that we are striking is the state disaster funds in 25 due to the lack of time that they'll have to spend it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the substitute motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, I think it failed. All right, yeah, that motion fails. We're back on the original motion. Any discussion on the original motion? All right, no further discussion. I will move my original motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? All right, FY25 has been approved as amended. We'll move to FY 2026. I move the Legislative Budget Committee recommendation HB 2007 for FY 26 with the following adjustments. I would like to add back in the state disaster funds, which is 2.3 million, and the KDIM federal cut at 400,000. Can I get a second? Any discussion on this motion? I'll just make a quick point. The governor gave 500,000 on the KDIM federal funding. They asked for 400,000. I spoke with the Adjutant General. It sounds like, or the Adjutant General's office, sounds like 400,000 in 2026 they're okay with. So just wanted to make that clear. Any further discussion? There's no more discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All right, we have approved the Adjutant General's FY 25 and 26 with the adjustments. We will close the recommendation on the Adjutant General. All right, well, we made it through the first day of recommendations. We report these budgets out to the Full Appropriations Committee on Wednesday. We do have the schedule out for next week as well. We'll have a full week of hearings and recommendations next week as well. Any comments for the committee? All right, if not, we're adjourned. Thank you.